you have George Latimer talking about Jamaal Bowman playing the ethnic game.
Right, saying, oh, he's gonna get ethnic votes, right? Like
Ethnic votes.
while also himself, George Latimer is someone who's been on record like comparing Andrew Cuomo ended up having to resign based on the scandals to like the Emmett Till lynchings. That's who we're dealing with here.
Right. That's yeah. So I'm fine if you were upset with some things that Rep Bowman didn't vote for or voted for. That's fine. Voting record, when he came on my show, we talked about the infrastructure bill. He didn't vote for an increase to the defense budget. I know some folks hated that. I actually like that because I think the
Yeah.
defense budget is bloated, but I know I'm a little bit too, progressive for folks. But what are your thoughts on this? And if you could also speak to Olayemi, that we had this discussion before about Mayor Eric Adams. I'm just starting to feel like maybe people don't want the person to the left. Maybe folks are really craving the moderate. So where does that leave folks like you or I?
I think there's a really huge disconnect between the left and what actually happens and what everybody else wants, and I say that as someone firmly on the left, right? Like there's a huge disconnect between what we say needs to happen or what we say needs to happen in order to win a seat or to be in office versus what actually happens, right? Because so much I've been hearing since October 7th, the song and chorus from the left has been, if you are not calling for a ceasefire, if you are not pro-Palestine, if you are not calling to calling this a genocide, then you are, you're the opposite, you're the enemy, and that you're going to lose, right? It's because they're saying that the majority of the American public wants this. But you see Jamaal Bowman. Jamaal Bowman is one of the earliest people in Congress to call for a permanent ceasefire, and it got him out of office. It literally in or and you know what's the interesting thing is to watch APAC mobilize. I think people need to understand they didn't just this isn't just a super PAC spending a lot of money or some money in order to beat a candidate. They spent the most money they have ever spent in their history in order to defeat Jamaal Bowman in this primary race, right? And I see a lot of people from the left even like, oh, we don't like him because he's not pro enough Palestine. And I'm like, it's interesting to you watch a candidate be one of the few people that will call for the permanent ceasefire and that will do it, and yet now you watch the entire, not just the right, but because you have this is a primary, but George Latimer is being backed by APAC and Trump dollars and all this. But you can see it online. You can see that it's Democrats, like establishment Democrats, as well as Republicans in one line, one step about like mocking Bowman and wanting Bowman out. And then in the same breath, because they're calling him, they're conflating with to be pro-Palestine or to want a ceasefire or to be against what a lot of people are calling a genocide, to be against that. They're saying that makes you an anti-Semite. They're conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and they're doing all of this to attack a Jamaal Bowman. Meanwhile, the left is saying you're not left, you're not supporting Palestine. Like that's what I see in my comments, seeing about Jamaal Bowman, and it's like, what do you do? What do you do as a candidate or the
What do you
progressive
do?
candidates that we get that in so many ways have implemented the policies that we want, have represented the communities that we have wanted, that have gotten the endorsement and the support from places like the Working Families Parties? What do you do if they try to their detriment to answer the calls of the left, to call for a ceasefire, to call for that, and then they are attacked by both the left and the right? What happens then?
No, it's a great question, and it leads me to believe, should they be saying the right things just to stay in Congress, to play the game? I
And
mean, Jamal Bowman did submit a reparations bill. Jamal Bowman did call for Clarence Thomas to step down. There's a lot of
yes,
things he called for that literally, what I hear point by point, what folks say they want on the quote
exactly
unquote
what.
left, he's that.
Exactly. And that's somehow not enough. And the thing is, what I keep experiencing, right, is like the left will do these things. And I say this again, I'm the left. I'm the left. So I'm speaking for my own community and what I see in my own audience, what I see in the comments, what I see in the conversations, what I see in my peers talking about. But the left will do this thing and they'll be like, oh, Biden's gonna lose if he doesn't support Palestine. But all that I'm seeing, the evidence that I'm seeing based on the road is that that's the opposite of the truth. So what happens when the left will not support anybody who no one is progressive enough? Nobody is ever progressive enough, right? They support Palestine, they speak up. It's not enough, right? They had to have their reckoning or their radicalization moment at the same time as these people, or it's not enough. They're not progressive enough. So you won't support them. And then we are seeing that the money and the powers that be in a lot of in the a large part of the country, because through their own fault or not. It's not. They're being inundated with this messaging. They're being inundated with this ad. So there's a swath of the country that believes that very much so is in support of what Israel is doing, because that's what they've been indoctrinated to believe and support their entire lives, and they continue to. So what is really the truth? It's like I don't know. I don't really know what what our candidates can do. And I think it's a dangerous, like, it says a lot if we're able to get a candidate like a Jamaal Bowman, who has done so much of the things and
Great
spoken
stuff.
to the things, and like really has been
Expanded
someone
mental health for young kids in his district.
has held
Yeah.
himself accountable to what what the left is saying, what his progressive constituents are saying, even to his detriment, and then he doesn't get backed by even them, you know? I don't know what to do with people anymore. I don't know what to do. I don't know, Clay. I don't know what left there is to say, because in so many respects, like, I interviewed Jamal Bowman myself. I brought it like I interviewed
Great
him for
interview.
the show, and I went out of my way, Clay, to make sure I covered, like, did my research to be like,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
expect me to be critical. Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me go make sure, especially where all my own views align and where the left is. And I asked them all about it. I I'm like, this is what you want. This is what we say that we want.
Now, I do want to win, and it's a necessity that we maintain Congress and hopefully get that House majority, the Senate. But where does that leave people like you or I, or even the callers out there, where we're really to the left, but it appears those candidates aren't really winnable or sustainable? What do we do? How do we have to concede? We can't even get a proper mayor in New York City. Like, what do we do?
I This is something I think about a lot, Clay, because I try to I'm trying to bridge the disconnect between what I think and what I want and what I know the rest of the public wants. So I see, like, something I like myself has experienced. I want to say, like, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have had a mentality, which I think a lot of my audience does, of, if this candidate has not, like, sworn their allegiance to my school of thought on this particular thing, loudly proclaim themselves to be on my side with this thing, I will be against them, even if I know ultimately that what they are doing or saying still services that. And now I'm at a place today where I try to think about how much being approved of by people like me is hurtful to the cause. Like, I think to myself, like, even with, like, Jamaal Bowman's race, I interviewed Jamaal Bowman, and I came out and I said to people that they should go out and vote for Jamaal Bowman. But I felt apprehensive to do that because I almost felt like it could hurt him. I felt like I was like,
Wow.
if I'm a person that people see as, like, not everybody, because there are people who will tell you I'm a shit lib, vote blue, no matter who, all of that, right? But there are a bunch of other people, the people who think that don't realize that the majority, everybody else, thinks I am a black radical, a super left, super woke, and all of this. And so sometimes I recognize, I'm like, to the average person, not the people that are in our audience that seek out a leftist perspective, but the average person, does it benefit you if the abolitionist, the abolish the police and blah 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 person, like, backs you or loudly says that you're representative of them? So I'm trying to find, like, a middle ground where I don't expect these candidates. I don't know. I'm trying to find it, Clay, where I don't expect them to loudly be like, I don't expect them to be the messenger like me that has to
Mm.
fight for defunding, the explaining why defunding the police is not, there's nothing wrong with that, like saying that, or explaining why abolition is, or da. I'm trying to get to a place where it's good enough for me to realize that the things they're doing or the policies that they're calling for serves that. Like, a Jamaal Bowman is someone who was speaking to restorative justice, and policy wise, he was implementing things that supported my abolitionist vision. I'm trying to get to the place where I don't require that candidate to have to say they're this thing or they're that, that's going to cost them votes. Because I think a lot of the time that's what happens. I keep seeing it, like, despite the fact that, there's so many leftists like me who have audiences and who people listen to and have a lot of influence, I'm finding that a lot of candidates we like, or we loudly proclaim as ours, take a bullet. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
keep
They don't
feeling
even
that.
make